Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly live immigration attorney chat here at Immigration for Couples. If you are new to our channel, to our YouTube channel and to our Facebook page and our law firm, welcome. We're excited to have you here. I already see that we have quite a few individuals who are joining us here live. So again, welcome. And I see that I have individuals asking questions. So that's great. Keep them coming. I will get to the questions in the order I receive them. So I am streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram all at the same time. And so I will receive questions from all of those platforms, and then they'll come up here for me in the order I receive them. I would just ask, if you have a question, please just ask it once. I promise I will do my best to get to all of the questions in the time we have here today. Because there are so many questions coming in, I'm actually just going to skip over the topic that I have lined up. And I would like to let all of you know, whether you're just starting out or in the middle of your immigration journey, Immigration for Couples, we have a free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. Easy to remember, right? And I've created this resource center with so much care and consideration and love for all of you who are going through an immigration process. There are charts and an overview of the different processes that are available to couples, a free webinar, a relationship evidence guide, everything you really need to understand your options and understand where to start. And of course, you are always welcome to schedule a consultation with me at 317-247-5040. That's our phone number. And Lisa or Taylor will help get you on my calendar. All right. So let me see. Tell me, where are you all at in the world? I love to do this. So please throw in the comments, where are you at? What country? Morning, Lisa. So let's see. We have watching you from Canada. Awesome. You're very, very welcome. I'm happy to have you here today. Where else is everyone at? Here we go. This is my favorite part. I love to see. It's just, I love my work in the world because I love and helping guide couples. And then I told my parents when I was little that I kept telling them, I'm going to work with people all over the world and, dreams of children. And they would tell me, that's great. And here I am manifesting what I said I was going to do. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I'd be helping people all over the world. So I love this part. Missouri, Georgia, Vermont, Scotland. Awesome. I love Scotland. Nigeria. That is great. Thank you for being with us. Miami. Where else? Awesome. Please keep them coming. And UK graduate visa is not to be confused with a UK student visa. Okay. All right. And we have so many questions. So let me start here with Ginger. So Ginger, welcome. I know you've joined us before. And good morning to you too. Hope you and Lisa. Yes, Lisa is one of our team members. Julie is our firm administrator, and Julie helps with these weekly live chats. And so she is here and will throw links into the webinar and things that I mentioned. So yes, Lisa's part of our team and Julie's here with me today. So I'm having a fantastic day. I went on a nice walk early this morning, enjoyed the sun. That always feels like it recharges your body. I hope you're having a good day too. You haven't filed yet, but hopefully in a few months. Awesome. That's great. You have a whole folder full of evidence. Great. Hopefully you've checked out our free relationship evidence guide too at immigrationforcouples.com. Tell me too, everyone who's in the chat, tell me, are you just starting out or in the middle of your immigration journey? And sometimes we have individuals who finished in their immigration process and are here watching too. But just say, if you want to throw in the comments, just starting out or in the middle, that would be great. I'd love to know. Okay, so Annabelle, you are next in line with your question. Is it easier to apply for a spousal or a fiance visa? And which one will get the work permit faster from the start of the application process? Great question. I love this question. And this is going to be helpful to so many couples who are going through the process. So which one is easier? Immigration I would never use the word easy to describe anything with immigration, but I know exactly what you're asking. So easier could be different for different people. I would say in general, individuals would say, couples would say, I would say the spouse visa is easier in the sense that it's a little bit more streamlined. And by that, I mean, the steps are fewer. And once the person enters the United States, they're a green card holder and they wouldn't have to go through a whole nother step like the fiance visa. So a lot of individuals would argue that the spouse visa would be easier in that sense. Now, the spouse visa typically at present time takes much longer than the fiance visa. And by much longer, I mean anywhere from 6 to 12 months longer. It really depends on the country. And so some individuals would say, because of that, the fiance visa is easier in terms of that time apart. You get to be together faster. But in general, the spouse visa has less steps. And the person, after their interview, there's an interview at a US embassy or consulate abroad, that person will receive the spouse visa. And the great thing is with the spouse visa is as soon as that person enters the United States on their spouse visa, they are a green card holder. They're immediately eligible to work and to hit the ground running. So they won't even need a work permit. That's the great thing about the spouse visa. And then with the fiance visa, typically that process, it has one extra step there, sometimes two if immigration wants to do another interview. And so with the fiance visa, the person would be entering the US faster, but he or she would have to apply for a work permit. Those are taking anywhere from 2 to 6 months to arrive. But with that fiance visa, the person does have a period of, for lack of a better word to describe it, limbo, where they're not able to work. All right. So Annabelle, I know that was a lot of information. I hope that was a 30,000-foot view. So I hope that gives you clarity. And I really encourage you to check out the free webinar that I created. It's in our resource center. You can put in your email and you can download that webinar. And I dive into the 4 options that are available to couples, why couples choose one option over the other, the process, proving your relationship. So that's a really great start as well. Or you're always welcome to call the office if you're wanting to schedule a consultation, and I'm happy to speak with you as well about your specific situation. But check out that free resource center, immigrationforcouples.com. I just put it here at the bottom. All right. A great question. All right. And then, okay, great. Okay. So Holden Daly, this is your question about US domicile. So am I in jeopardy of failing to prove domicile to USCIS if I get on a UK spouse visa this year? Okay. So domicile. So to back up for everyone to understand if maybe they haven't heard of domicile or haven't gotten to this part in the process, domicile is one of the pieces or one of the elements that you as a US citizen or lawful permanent resident petitioning for your spouse or fiance, you have to prove domicile. So what is domicile? Well, it's a legal term of art. It's a fancy way of saying your home, in fact. Where is your home? Where is your ties? An individual can only have one domicile. Often, when an individual is studying abroad, for example, they may find themselves in another country, but their country of origin would be their home. So someone in the United States studying in the UK, you were going to be in the UK temporarily for studies, be it 6 months, a year, however long, but you maintain a home, you maintain roots, you maintain a life in the US. So there's a few different ways to prove domicile, and this is something we work with couples on early in the process because domicile doesn't happen in the first step of the fiance or spouse visa, but it will happen at a later step at that interview. So it's really important to make sure you are able to prove domicile. Domicile is maintaining an address in the US. So perhaps you'd have a US driver's license, you have a mailing address, you still receive mail. It's very important that you're filing taxes still in the United States. A voter registration card, and the list goes on. But in general, making sure you have enough evidence, enough proof that the U.S. is your home from those examples that I just gave will typically help with domicile. Some U.S. embassies and consulates are very strict on the domicile piece. Domicile has to be proved no matter what process, but some U.S. embassies and consulates ask for even more evidence, especially if someone has been living abroad for extended period of time. But hopefully that helps answer your question. All right. And all right. And if everybody this is helpful to everyone, if you're enjoying the content, I love getting thumbs up and hearts and all that good stuff. So I know I'm not putting anybody to sleep and that this is helpful information for all of you. Or just throwing in the chat that it's helpful. All right. Okay, this is a great question. So, Emmanuel, you're asking, you have a spouse petition and then a petition for your daughter, and they're in different service centers. Can we ask the service center of my child to transfer the petition? Great question. This happens a lot. One of the many nonsensical things in immigration law is that you can file petitions for multiple family members, like a spouse and children, and they can, even though they were all mailed at the same time, they can find themselves in different offices with different processing times. That's why when somebody asks, how long does a case take? It's really going to be a very general estimate because of these types of factors. So typically, what we do here at our office for our clients is that we just let those cases process as they are. Service centers typically are not going to transfer cases. Workloads are assigned and the file is transferred. And frankly, they're literally transporting physical files and sending electronic files. You don't want that file to move anymore. You just want it to stay placed. If you know it's in line for an officer to look at, leave those cases pending. Sometimes one of the cases will be approved before the others, and sometimes you could make an inquiry with USCIS on the others. But we have strategic ways that once one case is approved, we will try to expedite the other cases. And the other things that we will do is, if with a spouse visa process, there's a national visa center step that happens all online. We will make sure that all of the cases are approved before we are submitting anything on that national visa center portal to try to get the cases to basically catch up and process at the same time. And then you're going to run into the same issue oftentimes when that consular interview happens. Usually the U.S. embassies and consulates look and see what cases are a family unit and try to schedule those interviews together. But we've definitely seen where they might schedule one person and then we have to reach out and say, hey, there's two kiddos that are on this application too. Or, hey, there's a parent and another sibling that needs to have an interview at the same time. The family wants to come together. So the long story short here is that transferring from another service center really isn't going to be the best practice. Typically, you're just going to wait. Typically, you will see them get approved at the same time, but if not, if one gets approved early, then you can always make that inquiry with USCIS and try to expedite. And and you had another part, are the petitions will be processed. Oh, yep, and I was reading your mind. I guess I was already answering that. So that would be what I would recommend. And if you run into any roadblocks or obstacles as it happens with immigration, we've helped many families get their cases all together and get through that process together. So if you hopefully not, but if you run into any bumps in the road and are needing help making sure those cases process together, that if the family can all come to the US together, we can definitely help you with that. And then I put the phone number here at the bottom in our website for your reference. All right, great question though. Okay. So how do you know if you need a lawyer? I have my information put together, but I'm nervous about the process. Great question. So I will be honest with you, even though I'm an immigration attorney and the CEO and founder of an immigration firm, I will be honest, you don't have to hire an immigration attorney for your case. However, some of the considerations, some of the things to take into consideration when making a decision to do it on your own or hire an attorney are similar to a lot of different things that happen in life or projects, if you will. This is a very highly nuanced process. It's a bureaucratic process. It's a labyrinth. You're dealing with immigration laws, and you have to understand the risks that are associated with doing this kind of complex DIY project, right? So understanding that there are a lot of common pitfalls. I do see couples who get through the process just fine on their own, and that's great. And that's in large part why I've created the Resource Center, is for couples to understand the complexities of immigration law and have a solid foundation. But I've also created that Resource Center because I've seen many couples who've tried it on their own. And there are so many aspects of immigration law that USCIS and immigration doesn't take into consideration in instructions and information they provide. And every case is different. So I see couples who come and weren't aware of X, Y, and Z in their case, and they're having to start over from the beginning. And they've spent a year in the process and paid a lot of government fees and time, you can't get that back. So kind of putting in balance, or really thinking about, is it worth it to you to have these potential risks and have these potential pitfalls, but doing it on your own? Kind of thinking about that. That's one of the first considerations. And then the other big consideration is, do you want to teach yourself immigration law? I love it. I eat, live, breathe, and sleep this. I went to law school, and I love the law, and I love immigration. I love helping couples, but I know everyone else in the world has their own calling, and you are probably quite busy, and it's really up to you to decide, do you have the time, the energy, the bandwidth to do the research, to do everything that is needed to make sure you are putting together the strongest case? So that's the other piece to consider, okay? And I would encourage you to check out the free webinar that I created, because I talk about some of the things to think about in hiring an attorney. I go into more detail, and I also talk about questions that you should ask if you're interviewing an immigration attorney to make sure that you find someone that is the right fit. So, but yes, you're nervous about the process, and that's really common. Couples that we help are nervous about the process. It's unknown. And when you're doing your own immigration case, you have to think of that too, is that's time that you're taking away from your relationship, and you could be adding additional stress, onto your shoulders. If you file it and you're worried and you're not sure, you don't have that peace of mind, and it can cause additional strains on your emotional health and well-being. So just some things to consider. And I hope that was helpful. And again, check out that webinar at immigrationforcouples.com. All right. And let's see here. I have a lot of questions. See if I can talk fast enough to get through all of them. All right. So Don Stone. So you had your I-129F approved in February. Do we get our background checks for the 4 countries she lived in? Or does NVC USCIS get the background checks? Awesome. Great question. So once the I-129F, once that petition is approved, your case will move on to the National Visa Center and then on to the consulate, the U.S. Embassy or consulate, where the interview will happen. So those police background checks are something that you have to obtain to take with you to that interview. The country where you will have your interview, they should have sent you an email. They'll let you know when you can schedule your interview and take the next steps. But once that petition is approved, you can move forward with obtaining background checks. Typically, the background checks, immigration will consider them to be valid for 1 year. Some countries that the amount of time it's valid can be a little less or more, but in general, about a year. And your case will be handled now, not by USCIS, but now by the National Visa Center in the consular post. So yes, you would need to get those background checks. All right, great question. Yeah, so you are in Kenya and you've been waiting for your interview. It's been a year and you've been documentarily qualified for a year. What's going on? So it really depends on that country where the interview will occur. Some countries have a few months of a wait time for that interview to be scheduled, and others have more than a year wait. So what's going on is that you're likely at a consular post that has a longer wait, especially if it's Kenya. It does typically have a much longer wait. You can always make an inquiry with the consulate, the U.S. Embassy or consulate where that interview will occur, or the National Visa Center, and ask for an update. Typically, they will give you the cookie cutter response of, we will schedule you for an interview as soon as your case gets to the front of the line. But it is common for interviews in some countries to take more than a year to schedule. But if it's been a year, hopefully you should be getting an interview soon. So good luck. All right. And I had a lot of individuals, let's see, telling me where they're at. Oh, we have some others joining us. Leah from California. That's awesome. All right. What is the... I have somebody from Mexico. Okay. So this is the next question in line. I have four platforms and I have many questions, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm going in order and not skipping any. Okay. So you're a citizen of Mexico living in Mexico, and you currently have a tourist visa for the United States. You're planning to marry your girlfriend, but you haven't figured out if we should marry in the US or Mexico. Okay. So, great, great. It sounds like maybe your question is asking me which country where you should get married. If you have decided on the spouse visa, that is great. For our clients from Mexico, I really encourage you to think about the fiance visa. I'm glad if you've picked the path and you want to do spouse visa, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that the fiance visa for our clients from Mexico typically is a much faster option. So I'd be remiss if I didn't share that with you. So the wait times for spouse visas, for individuals processing through Mexico, you're looking at more than 18 months typically, easily more than 18 months for an interview. So with the fiance visa, we're seeing that's happening in less than a year. So again, I just would be remiss if I didn't share that with you, but that's something to think about. And I'm happy to speak with you both privately in a consultation to make sure you're eligible and make sure that's the best option for you both. But I want you to be aware of that option. And then in terms of where you get married, if you decide to move forward with the spouse visa option, US or Mexico is fine. Just understand that if you're coming on your tourist visa and you get married, you still need to make sure that you are leaving well before your tourist visa stay expires. You don't want to stay beyond that 6 months, okay? I know there are rumors out there and things online that say to come on a tourist visa and get married and adjust status, but that's not legally permissible. So yes, you can get married in either country. And again, here, let me throw up for you again that free resource center, immigrationforcouples.com, and then our phone 317-247-5040. If you're wanting to talk in private with me about your personal situation, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, that would be my feedback, my response to your comment and question. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Somebody's saying 2 years and waiting for I-485 to be approved. So if this is an adjustment of status that's based on marriage to a US citizen and you've been waiting for 2 years, you really need to think about filing something called a mandamus action. Our firm has done this quite a few times for individuals who've been waiting well beyond a year for their green card to be approved or for that interview. The mandamus action is essentially suing the government, suing immigration for their unreasonable delay and failure to do their duty, to do their job. And when we file those, typically individuals will receive their interview or an approval within a matter of a few weeks or a few months. So again, this is one of those questions I'd be remiss for not sharing that with you. So if you have an immigration attorney, talk with him or her about that option. If you don't have an immigration attorney and you need help, there's our information and we can talk about getting that case finished because 2 years is insane, right? All right. Oh, and then Nick. All right. So what is the average cost for a K1 to green card for fiance case? Typically asking for a friend. Really, I'm married and an old client, Nick and Anetta. Thank you for being here. It's so great to, I guess, not see you, but be with you here. So the average cost for a case for the fiance visa green card, most of our services start with an initial retainer deposit somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000, and then the cost will go up from there with payment plans. It will depend on the specific case that the specific immigration situation that a person has. Some cases are quite complex and involve waivers of forgiveness, or like I was mentioning with mandamus actions and things of that nature. Those can get upwards of 15,000 or upwards of 20,000, depending on the type of case and the waivers. But I would say on average to get started, you're looking at somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 deposit. And then from there, we have payment plans to cover the remaining cost of the case. But if anybody is wanting to get on a call with me or wanting to learn more about our services, you can always call the office. Lisa will be able to help you, give you more information. And then our website, immigrationforcouples.com. So thanks for the question and hope you are both doing well. It's great to have you here. All right. And and Julie was putting up the free resource center information. So that's great. Wherever you're watching, Julie is putting those links in there too. Make sure I'm not skipping anyone. Okay. So, how long is USCIS taking to respond to requests for evidence right now? It really will depend on the type of case. There's request for evidence, and then there are notice of intent to deny. Those are two different types of requests that an individual can receive. Requests for evidence, typically, they'll take anywhere from a month to 4 to 6 months for immigration to decide. Sometimes those notice of intent to deny responses can take much longer because they're needing to do research and an investigation. But in general, usually within a few months, but it always is going to depend on that case. But great question. All right. Now I have one of those very long questions that's going to going to cover up a lot of the screen here. So Misty, thanks for being with us and such a lovely photo. You're not sure if you need an immigration attorney or not. I think my husband himself has a pretty clean, clear-cut case, but it's taking such a long time through consular processing in Jordan. Yes, it is. And you're very nervous. Let me tell you about a case, and then you can give me your opinion, please. My husband and myself got married in 2022. We applied for the I-130 and it was approved. Our case was sent to the National Visa Center where they transferred. So I'm using StreamYard, and I can't see the entire, if the question is longer than this, if it's like a book, it won't let me pull the whole thing up on the screen. There's just not room. So whether or not you need an immigration attorney, it sounds like that you are nervous and you are not sure if you have done things properly or if there's anything wrong with if there's anything wrong with your particular case. It would probably give you peace of mind to speak with an immigration attorney in a consultation and go over the case and go over your situation and understand if there are any potential issues with the case. Even if I were to read the entire comment that you have without seeing the application, without doing a thorough analysis of background and eligibility, I'm like this, right? I always say I'm with blinders if I can't do that thorough review of your situation. Wait times for interviews are very long. And if you've received a notification from the National Visa Center saying your case is documentarily qualified and you're still waiting for an interview, you can always try, to reach out to the National Visa Center. You can try to reach out to the consular post and see if they will give you any information on the status. Otherwise, if you are nervous and are wanting peace of mind, I would highly recommend speaking with an attorney and a consultation, just making sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed your T's and understanding what options might exist. Depending on when you were documentarily qualified, if you've been waiting for, typically if you've been waiting for more than a year, sometimes looking at congressional inquiries, sometimes looking at that. We've helped couples with a mandamus action, like I had mentioned earlier, to sue the government to do their job, right? Sometimes that is something that you need to consider at a certain point as well. And that's something we can discuss in a consultation. All right. But thanks for the question, Misty, and good luck. Hopefully sometimes there's a team member on our team, Catherine. She's fantastic. And we do weekly meetings, and one of the things that we both have found and say is when an individual feels that they just cannot physically wait anymore for a decision, typically the decision comes. I hope that holds true for you, and maybe you'll get an interview. But all right, good luck to you. All right, so Mike, you had a DUI in 1979. You forgot about this and didn't include it. It was approved and sent to the NVC, then to the embassy. You had your FBI background check and nothing. No record at the courthouse records. I told the clerk. She said because because you weren't fingerprinted. If the FBI can't find it, I'm not going to say anything and see if anything happens. I have a copy of the FBI report. So yes, I remember you asking this question before. So there is a question on that I-129F petition that asks if you've ever had any charge, citation, conviction, arrest. That includes traffic-related offenses that are drug or alcohol-related, like a DUI. And that has to be disclosed. As an attorney and as someone who swore an oath of candor to the tribunal, that's what it's called, and in your best interest, it is very important to be honest and make sure that is provided, that information is provided to immigration. If you do not have an immigration attorney, you really should think about getting an immigration attorney to help you with updating your application. I will tell you, I have seen many, many times that individuals, and that's fair. If it happened a while ago and you have forgotten, or maybe, the question on the application, it's not, there's a lot of legal jargon, right? And maybe you didn't fully understand that, or like you said, you forgot. That happens, and it's important, once you do remember, to be honest about that, to be transparent, and make sure that immigration file is clean, because you don't want to be on the defensive where immigration can see that information and comes back and will say, hey, we actually need to send this case back to USCIS because it looks like there was prior criminal history here and it wasn't disclosed. I have seen that happen many times. I've had many individuals who will reach out to our firm and say, the case was approved and was sent on, and we were getting ready for the interview, or my fiance attended the interview, and then immigration said they're sending the case back to USCIS, that they made a mistake, that there was information that wasn't disclosed. So I have definitely seen that, and it's really important that that you're aware of that. Yes, when records are old, they might not show up on an FBI background check, but immigration and government agencies have the ability to see much more than maybe what would show up on an FBI background check. So this is the kind of topic that definitely, if you have an immigration attorney, please speak with him or her and have them help you to navigate this. If not, and if you're wanting to get on a call and speak privately, here are the links, immigrationforcouples.com, and on our phone number. Okay. But great question. I'm glad you remembered, because now you can be proactive and instead of reactive, right? So you can take care of it. All right. Oh, and I think, I think some individuals might be asking their question more than once. And so if you've already asked it, I get to them in the order, and I see I've answered those two questions. You're very welcome. I'm glad that was helpful. All right. So I am from Pakistan. Wife is U.S. citizen. You got married via an online marriage and met afterwards. Do you have to register that marriage in Pakistan? Okay, so some countries, like the Philippines, for example, if you were married or divorced in another country, that does have to be registered, because there's something called a CNMAR, a certificate of non-marriage, or a CMAR, a certificate of marriage. So with regards to registering that marriage in Pakistan, that would have to do with family law, civil law, really, in Pakistan. So that would be something you can speak with an attorney there and understand if that's a requirement in that country to be in compliance. From a U.S. immigration standpoint, so just speaking of U.S. immigration, you just need a legally binding marriage, and it has to be legally binding in whatever state or country where that marriage occurred. So the Utah marriages are a great option. It is important to understand that meeting, being in person, that meeting requirement. But as long as you have a legally binding marriage, U.S. immigration is not going to necessarily require you to register in the other country. All right. So speaking with an attorney there to understand if there are steps you need to take if you were married abroad or married online. All right. Can you explain the financial requirements for husband in the military? He's in basic training. You're in Spain. You don't okay. So the affidavit of support is as part of the process for anyone who is receiving a green card, who's going through a process to receive a green card. The affidavit of support is required because immigration requires that immigrant beneficiary is not going to become a public charge, which means that the individual won't need government assistance. The process to show that there are funds that are sufficient funds available for this immigrant beneficiary for you to not be a public charge, you do that through the affidavit of support and through providing the tax returns and the financial documents and information of the petitioner. The amount that a person needs to make for that affidavit of support is determined by something called an I-864P. So if you look up the I-864P poverty guideline, you will see, based on your household size, how much an individual needs to make. And then there's a special column for individuals who are in active duty military. They have a lower amount that they have to provide. So it's not the standard amount. Okay. So that's the I-864P. All right. I'm going to try to grab some here quickly. You can check the USCIS processing times tool to see what are the processing times for that I-824. In general, that I believe last I checked, the processing times were falling anywhere from 5 to 12 months, but you can check that USCIS processing times tool. All right, great question. All right. So you have a spouse on military orders with U.S. citizen children and a pending I-130. Can she travel with me to the U.S. and how successful are vaccine waivers? So if an individual, if an immigrant is going through a spouse visa process and he or she has ESTA or a tourist visa, I see you say she is German. So she could have either an ESTA or tourist visa. Individuals are allowed to still travel for visits to the U.S. while that case is pending. Every entry is discretionary, which means that immigration could decide to turn the person away if they see that there's a pending application. Vaccine waivers, they can be successful. We've helped individuals, couples successfully complete the vaccine waiver and receive an approval. The vaccine waiver must be based on religious or moral objections to the vaccine. And if you would like to talk about that vaccine waiver process, again, you're welcome to schedule a consultation and we can talk privately. All right. Lilia. Oh, thank you for, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that was your experience. That breaks my heart. So from experience and from your case being denied, you highly recommend hiring a lawyer. Yeah. And that always breaks my heart when I see couples come and, they've tried it on their own and they did, they did the best they could. Immigration law is complex, and then telling them they have to start over or there's mistakes that are going to cost more money and time. So yes, and you want to hire an experienced immigration lawyer and do your, do research and find the right fit. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. And I hope you are able to get through the process successfully. Okay. So how long should you wait to file adjustment of status after marrying, and what's the current timeline? You just got your appointment August 5th, sent petition December of 2023, K1 with a child, Guatemala. So if you had entered the United States on a fiance visa, so if your spouse and child entered on K1 and K2, you have 90 days to get married, and that adjustment of status really should be filed in that 90-day window as well, because that is the period of time on that I-94 stamp when the person enters. So what we do for our couples is as soon as we know that their fiance visa and their children's visas have been approved, we start proactively preparing the adjustment application. So when they enter and they get married, we can seamlessly keep things moving forward and file as soon as possible. Also to minimize the time that immigrant and family unit is in limbo waiting for that work permit and green card. All right. Oh, you don't have any questions today. You're very welcome. And you started the process. Yay, we do. We wish you lots of luck. Best of luck, sending you prayers and positive vibes and all the things. Everyone here in this group will do that, I am certain. Please let us know how it goes. That's exciting. You're getting closer. Okay. Oh yeah, we got a congratulations here too. So when you work on a spouse visa and it's in process and they come visit you, and how much does a spouse visa cost? I'm not sure. Okay. When you work on a spouse visa and they come, I'm guessing are you asking if somebody's in the middle of their process and they come to our office, how much does it cost? I'm guessing that's what you're asking. So for individuals who are already in an immigration process, and let me see, I have a lot of questions in chat, but I just make sure you didn't do any follow-up to that. Okay. So if somebody's already in the middle of a process, we will typically work on an hourly basis. It really will depend. Like I had said earlier when someone was asking about cost, typically our initial payments for the payment plan or a retainer, you're looking at somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 for an initial payment. In terms of the overall cost, it's really going to depend on your specific case. Some individuals come to us in the middle of their case and they have an emergency basis and need an expedite. Or like I said, we do mandamus actions, or there might be a waiver, or you might just get to a point in the case where you're like, I don't want to teach myself immigration law and I don't want to be worried about whether or not I'm doing it right. all of those would have completely different estimates for the overall cost. But at least you have that idea of that initial deposit. And we can definitely talk in a consultation. So the consultation, you can schedule that at immigrationforcouples.com. We charge $300 for that consultation, and you'll meet with me. That $300 will be credited to the cost of your case if you decide to hire in 14 days. So, but yeah, during a consultation, I can really look at all of your information, tell you my advice on next steps, and then give you a better idea. All right. Thanks for the question. So your husband is in Gambia. When they get to his application for a green card, will they interview me too? So interviews that happen as part of the spouse visa process, they will happen at a U.S. embassy or consulate abroad, and only the immigrant beneficiary is required to attend that interview. It is rare that they would even allow the petitioner to go in for the interview. So great question. You're welcome. All right. Oh, you're telling us that you're from Philadelphia. Awesome. Awesome. So yes, and that was similar to one of the questions I was asked earlier. Can you still travel while the spouse visa is pending, or will customs know I am married and detain me? So yes, if an individual is going through an immigration process, a spouse visa, fiance visa, if you already have ESTA or a tourist visa, you could still come and visit your fiance or spouse in the United States. Every entry is discretionary, and at every entry, if they ask you questions, it's very important to be honest. So if they ask you who you're visiting and why you are coming, you need to be honest and, tell them you're coming to visit your husband or your fiance, right? You don't want to make up a story about going somewhere else when that's not what you're going to be doing. And yes, immigration can say, hey, you have this fiance visa case pending, or you have the spouse visa case pending, and they could decide to not let you enter. We have clients that visit while the application is pending. We have clients do that all of the time. We prepare them for how to respond to questions they might be asked based on their specific situation and case to increase the probability that they'll be able to enter on that tourist visa or ESTA. And I also provide my clients with a letter that explains we're going through this legal process and that my client is not planning to remain in the U.S. Yeah, just thought I would share some of the things that I do for my clients here, or what our firm does. And yes, the short answer is yes, you can visit, but every entry is discretionary. Do you recommend marrying in my country or in the US if I live in Mexico? Oh, and so you were just adding on to that question from earlier. You can marry in either location. It's really up to both of you. If you're wanting to marry, you can marry in either country as long as it's a legally binding marriage. That's all that will matter for immigration purposes. All right. Oh, that is a good question. So if Trump gets elected, will everything get more complicated? I'm going to pause because it's a lot of different things that are coming up for me. Practicing during the Trump administration, there were a lot of changes. Regardless, I know politics is a sensitive topic. I know that some of you may brace at this question, as am I. But politics aside, the reality is that each administration has their own ideas and policy agenda and what they plan on changing and wanting to change. I will say that during the Trump administration, a lot of immigration, all the USCIS offices that used to be abroad that made the process easier were closed, and wait times really increased under that administration. That is what I experienced, and that's what my clients experienced during that time. The immigration process did become more complicated. That was one of the factors, including COVID. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not sure. With every president, with every change in president, we always see changes in immigration. Unfortunately, the government has had trouble getting on the same page about a lot of topics. And so immigration laws themselves would need agreement from Congress and Senate to have the immigration laws themselves changed, but the policies, the how of the process, the wait times of the process, that can always be impacted by a change in president. So your guess is as good as mine. But it's really important for everybody. If you are a US citizen or if you are going through the process right now to become a US citizen, please let your voices be heard and please vote. Regardless of who you are voting for, please just exercise that right, that the ability that we have as U.S. citizens to vote. That's all I can say on that as well. All right, but thank you for that comment. We shall see if if anybody else has any feedback on that. But please do, if anybody does have any comments, everybody will keep our comments be kind, right? And I'm sure everybody in this group will. I've never had anyone be disrespectful. So you did have a follow-up. We're waiting on I-130. If in the meantime I'm getting in the US, no visa. Oh yeah, you're Canadian. Can I apply for US or AOS? Okay. So if you are already going through the I-130 process, you are just going to need to see that to the finish line. If someone has an intention to marry and live in the US, adjustment of status if you're abroad is not the proper vehicle. That's not the proper option, because adjustment of status requires that person had come to the US to visit. That includes someone from Canada that you came with that intention to visit, not with the intention to come here and remain and file for adjustment of status. So if you have that I-130 pending, let that I-130 pend, see it to that finish line, and you will have your interview abroad in Montreal. And then from there, you'll be able to receive your green card, but complete that spouse visa process. All right. All right. So how long you filed your case in December of 2023. So if it's a spouse visa, we're typically seeing that takes about 18 months, give or take, to get to the finish line. All right. All right. Yeah. And happy Pride Month. So we are here in India, LGBT couple. Can we get married in the US? I'm in Atlanta on a J1 visa and want my boyfriend to come to me on a spouse visa. In India, yeah. You know what? A lot of our couples, a lot of our same-sex couples who are from India and not able to get married there, look at that Utah virtual marriage. And I have a podcast episode on that. If you check out our website, you'll see a podcast I did with Reverend Heron. And she'll actually be coming on one of these lives here one day soon, so we can talk about virtual marriages. But yeah, you could get married. You could get married in the US, and then like I said, a lot of our couples look at that virtual marriage option. All right. Well, congratulations on your pending nuptials. Okay. And yeah, Michelle, and I think I answered your question earlier. So I have hundreds of questions that I receive, and I answer them in the order that I receive them. Okay. Can the interview date change from the selected date to an earlier date? Possibly. Typically, it wouldn't change to an earlier date. They can change it. Sometimes interviews get canceled and they would change it for later, but it's rare that they would change your interview date and have you go earlier. You're welcome, Mike. I'm glad that was helpful, and I'm glad you remembered, like I said. Okay. I have a couple more minutes. I was only going to do 40 minutes today. I have a build day, but I really want to help as many of you as I can by answering your questions. I will do 8 more minutes. Okay, my partner is coming to the US on an employer-sponsored work visa in the fall. If we get married next year, can he remain in the US working while we work on transitioning to a spouse visa green card process? So yeah, if he's going through a process to receive an employment-based visa, going through this legal channel to do that, if you were to decide to get married later, after he were here, then you could look at adjustment of status. You have to be careful because it will depend on the type of employment-based visa, and you want to make sure that there's not that intention there that he's coming and that you're getting married. So I'm guessing that you have an immigration attorney if you're already going through this process. So I encourage you to talk with him or her about options later for a spouse visa or adjustment of status, rather, if you are getting married. And if they don't handle those types of cases, or if you need an attorney, you're always welcome. We can talk in a consultation. There's the information. But yes, we do help many individuals who have one process going and then end up getting married, and we can shift gears and have another option as well for that green card. Okay, so your wife and your son have visas to work in the US as a nurse, okay? And then my wife and I together, my wife and I together with our son have visas, hopefully with a green card, but I want to know if as the husband can live in between UK and USA. Okay. So if you have a green card, the lawful permanent residency status, a green card, requires that you're living at least half the time in the United States. So you're needing to make sure you're spending at least half the year in the US. And also you need to make sure you're not taking trips outside of the US for more than 6 months. If something with business or obligations abroad would require you to be gone more than six months or a year, there are ways to apply for a permission to allow you to be gone, and that needs to be done before you were to leave, if that trip is going to be longer than that period of time. But in general, it's possible to go back and forth, just making sure you're maintaining that residency of at least half the time in the States. Yeah, Nigeria wait times, very long. So when individuals come to us to go through the spouse visa process and the fiance, I mean, you're looking at well over 18 to 24 months for that. The wait times in Lagos are very long, unfortunately. It's similar to wait times for Mexico. They're both some of the longer wait times in the world. Just married. Yay, congratulations. Your spouse has a K-1 visa. She came from the Philippines. What's next? The next step is adjustment of status. So somebody was asking about that earlier. I recommend you check out our free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. I can throw that in there as well. Check out that immigrationforcouples.com. We do have a resource that goes over the steps that are involved in that fiance visa process, and adjustment of status is that next step. Yeah, I am too. That's what's nice about the Facebook Lives and the community that we're creating here together, is so you all know you're not alone. And I've gone through the process too personally. And yes, it's good to know that there are others who are going through this as well. All right. So if someone goes to the US on a tourist visa with their child with no intention of marriage, but he then proposes and they get married, what are the complications? So with this being very hypothetical, in general, I will just say if you come to the United States with the intention to get married and stay and file for adjustment of status, that's not legally permissible. If immigration can figure that out based on circumstances, circumstantial evidence. And I will tell you, I've seen individuals who have read things online or who have tried to do this and then come to our office because, they've gotten denied at their green card interview, that immigration says, hey, this looks like this was your intention all along, and it's your burden to prove that it wasn't. And so what could happen, you're asking about the complications, is that a person in a worst case scenario can be deported. Generally, though, you're looking at needing to file a waiver of forgiveness. That can add a lot more time and a lot more expenses to the case. But in general, those are the complications. Those are the consequences, right? If that was not the intention, we've had individuals who've come and they're, visiting and on their tourist visa, and they fall in love and then get married. That's a different story. I would encourage you to check out my video. It was recently posted on the YouTube channel about the 90-day rule for adjustment of status as well. So you just were denied for a visitor visa. Sorry to hear that. I know it's never fun to receive a denial from immigration. Do you have to wait before I file for the immigrant visa? My husband's a U.S. citizen. I studied before on the U.S. on an F1. So there wouldn't be a waiting period before you're able to file your fiance visa or a spouse. Oh, you said husband. Sorry, you're looking at a spouse visa. There wouldn't be any period of wait. We would want to definitely look at the basis, the reason that they denied that tourist visa. That will have to be disclosed in the next application, and you'll want to be prepared for questions that they will ask about that denial. But there's definitely not any type of period of wait before you can file. We've helped many couples who've been in this situation where they've received a prior tourist visa denial to be able to still go through that spouse visa process successfully. All right. So for the K-1 visa, what is the process after the interview? When do you hear from the embassy after the interview in Europe via US Embassy? So it will depend on the country. Some countries will schedule the fiance visa interview for you, and then in others, they will send you an email telling you the next steps. You have to create an online account, and then you'll have to get in and schedule that interview. So typically after that fiance visa petition is approved, about 2 to 3 months later, you'd be receiving that email from the consular post to take next steps. Oh, and he's also been living outside of the US for 5 years. Yes, so it sounds like you have some more complex, I guess, I don't wanna say complicated, but m more complex, aspects of your immigration case. Living outside of the US, yes, domicile is going to be something definitely along with that prior tourist visa denial that will come up. Um, that will come up later in the process. So what we do when we meet with clients, if you were to decide to schedule a consultation with us, we will talk about that domicile piece and have a proactive plan in place to make sure that you have everything that's needed to prove domicile and be able to still be approved. So yes, that is something that they're going to look at if he's been living abroad for 5 years. So, Lilia, you're getting married in Mexico, and your question is, do you file in the US or Mexico? So all petitions, all applications for the I-130, they start in the US, they're filed through USCIS. And then from there, they go onto the National Visa Center. And then from there, you would be having an interview at Ciudad Juarez in Mexico. So yes, everything would be filed stateside first. You're welcome, Michelle. I'm glad that was helpful. You're very welcome. What do you need to do to get my advice? You can schedule a consultation or you can call the office 317-247-5040 and our team will get you scheduled. Okay. Right at the buzzer. My last question. You're from Jamaica. Your wife filed I-130 in August of 2023. So you can check the USCIS processing times tool. Putting in I-130, putting in the Nebraska Service Center, we are seeing that the I-130 petitions are taking about 12 months or more in some circumstances to be approved. So probably sometime here this fall would you be looking at that 1-year mark. But yeah, you can always check the processing times online. Okay. Do I offer services in California? Yes, we have lots of clients in California. We're a national practice. We have clients all over the world. You name it. We have clients in Dubai, Australia, Japan, all over Europe, California, all over the US. So yes, we can definitely help you no matter where you live in the world. Yeah, you're waiting on your approval notice and start on nerve-wracking next steps. Indeed, that's a good way. It's a good way to explain it. You're very welcome, Emily. Okay. I know it's been an hour, but I'm going to see. I just can't help it. I want to try to finish these questions out. You applied for a tourist visa. He was turned down. So Michelle, if you are in a relationship and that has to be disclosed on the tourist visa application, tourist visas are very difficult to get approved. And tourist visa, if the intention is for him to come and live in the US, the tourist visa is not the proper option. You need to be looking at fiance and spouse visa. So yes, tourist visas are very difficult. And sometimes tourist visas, by filing them, can cause you issues in your future fiance and spouse visa case. So I would really I would encourage you to check out the webinar at immigrationforcouples.com. Check out that webinar and you'll see it in the resource center and it goes over those options that are available to couples. And the tourist visa is not in there because that's not really a viable option. All right. Yeah. Okay. So a spouse visa. So the spouse visa would be your option then. Okay. Yep. So, but still check out that resource center all the same because we do have a lot of resources on the spouse visa. But yeah, tourist visas for those reasons, I wouldn't. Your friend went to the US on a tourist visa with her child and got married. Will the child get deported? Will they get deported? Without knowing all of the circumstances of their situation, I would say, of course. I hope not, right? But I don't know the circumstances of their situation. In some cases, adjustment of status can be completely fine, and it makes perfect sense. So hopefully, their circumstances are in alignment with the law, right? And so that wouldn't happen. Oh, and Ginger's saying, congratulations on your wedding, Jeff. That's awesome. Ah, yes. Good that you counted the days. And also looking at that I-94 stamp. You're very welcome, Lisa. I'm so glad to have all of you here regularly. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And you said you were married. Yep, you're welcome. All right. Oh, wow. I'm not sure if that's on somebody else's comment or not. All right. All right. I did it. I answered everybody's questions. That was awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Again, please check out our free resource center, immigrationforcouples.com. Have a fantastic rest of your week. If you enjoyed the live today, please give it a thumbs up, a heart, and please feel free to share it with anyone you know who's going through the immigration process. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Talk to you later. Bye.